Hello my YouTube friends and welcome back to another Generation Behind Hi-Fi video. In today's video, I'll be tearing down the Vera-Fi Audio Caldera 12 subwoofer. This subwoofer actually came recommended to me by a subscriber of mine who said he was very happy with his and asked if I would do a look inside video of one. So I reached out to Vera-Fi Audio and they sent me this review sample. Keep in mind that just because Vera-Fi Audio sent me this review sample doesn't mean I'm inclined to only say nice things about it. On this channel, I pride myself in giving you my honest opinion and being fully transparent with the data that I've collected. If you're not familiar with my look inside videos, then let me give you a brief overview of what they're all about. In my look inside videos, I tear down the subwoofer and go over the TS parameters of the driver, take a deep dive into the construction quality of the cabinet, and then go over the amplifier, which includes testing its output rating. So without further ado, let's get started with the teardown and see how this new subwoofer from Vera-Fi Audio stacks up against the competition. Vera-Fi Audio is a company I'm not familiar with at all, so I'm kind of curious to tear this one down and see what it's made of. At the time of this video, the Caldera 12 subwoofer will set you back $399 and can only be purchased on Vera-Fi Audio's website or from one of their dealers. Vera-Fi Audio does offer a 30-day in-home trial period, so you can return it in the event you don't like it. I'm a big fan of companies who offer in-home trial periods like this, so kudos to Vera-Fi Audio for offering it. What surprised me most about this subwoofer is the cabinet. The cabinet is finished in a beautiful rosewood veneer. Yep, you heard that right. The Caldera 12 has a real wood veneer cabinet, which is pretty incredible at this $399 price. No doubt, the cabinet is quite impressive and is definitely one of the nicest cabinets I've seen on a $399 subwoofer. As for specifications, the Caldera 12 uses a bass reflex cabinet design, a 12-inch driver, and a 500-watt Class D amplifier. However, I am a bit skeptical on the output rating of the amplifier, and I'll talk more about this later. This subwoofer features all the common connections like LFE plus stereo RCA inputs, adjustable phase control, volume knob, adjustable crossover from 50 to 150 Hz, and an on-off power switch. Features that I normally don't see at this price point and are included with the Caldera 12 is a balance input and a bass boost function. There isn't much information given about the bass boost function in the manual other than it saying bass strengthen. Like most new companies starting out in this industry, there is definitely room for improvements in some areas, including the owner's manual. Now let's get started with the teardown. The driver is held to the front baffle with 8 Phillips head screws. The tools I'll be using to remove the driver include a screwdriver and a very important and precise butter knife from my wife's kitchen. Once all the screws are removed, there is a plastic beauty ring that needs to be removed before the driver will come out. The driver from the Caldera 12 is 12 inches in size and includes a large rubber surround. The cone material appears to be made from paper pulp, and I believe it has a resin applied to it to further reinforce the cone, but I'm not 100% sure on that. The speaker basket is made from stamped steel like most subwoofers are in this price category. The motor assembly features a pretty large ferrite magnet that measures 5 3/8 inches in width and 7/8 of an inch in height. The voice coil appears to be 2 inches in size, and Vera-Fi Audio is cooling it indirectly by using a vented pole piece. A vented pole piece serves two purposes. It gives the trapped air behind the dust cap a place to vent and helps keep the voice coil cool during those loud listening sessions. This driver also features a bump plate, which is the raised section on the back of the motor assembly. The bump plate allows for more excursion so the voice coil doesn't bottom out. Overall, it's a decent driver, and the tech being used is typical for what I find in subwoofers around this $400 price point. The impedance curve from the woofer is pretty smooth. The smoother the impedance graph is, the less likely there will be a problem in the frequency response of the subwoofer. The resonant frequency of the driver, or FS, came in at 30.6 Hz. This means the subwoofer can produce bass in the 30 Hz region quite comfortably. DC resistance of the driver measured at 5.3 ohms and total Q came in at 0.54, indicating a decently damped driver. Voice coil inductance came in at 2.49 millihenries, which is a bit high, but typical for what I find in subwoofer drivers around this price category. BL, also known as force factor, measures the strength of the motor assembly, and it came in at 16 Tesla meters, which is above average for this price category. In very simple terms, the higher BL is, the more control it will have over a speaker's cone or diaphragm. This results in the ability to reproduce those bass notes more precisely. Now let's remove the plate amplifier. This amplifier is fastened to the cabinet by 12 3mm Allen screws. After removing the plate amplifier, I noticed that Vera-Fi Audio is giving the amplifier its own chamber within the cabinet, meaning it doesn't share airspace with the subwoofer. This is the first time I've seen this being done on such an affordable subwoofer. The amplifier in the Caldera 12 is a Class D design with a large toroidal transformer. The two large capacitors, which I think are the filtering capacitors, each have a capacitance of 10,000 microfarads and are made by Unicon. Unicon is a Chinese-based capacitor manufacturer that has been in business since the 1960s and are known for making decent quality capacitors. From what I can see, the remaining capacitors are made by JWCO. JWCO is another Chinese-based capacitor manufacturer. Vera-Fi Audio claims the output rating of the Caldera 12 amplifier is 500 watts, but after listening to it, I was a bit skeptical of that figure, so I disassembled the amplifier to have a peek at the output transistors being used, and I noticed they sanded off the markings that identify them. Well, shucks. Not to worry though, because I will be connecting my oscilloscope to the amplifier and will measure the output power until I see the onset of clipping. For this test, I'll be measuring the power rating of this amplifier to see if it's in line with the manufacturer's 500 watt claim. For the testing parameters, this amplifier will be connected to my 4 ohm dummy load, and I'll be feeding it a 75 Hz signal from my signal generator. I will then be using my oscilloscope to measure the output of the amplifier until I see the onset of clipping. You will notice when the amplifier is clipping when the peaks of the sine waves start to flatten out. Keep an eye on the RMS voltage because we will be using that number to determine the amplifier's output in watts. As I turn up the volume and RMS voltage starts to get above 32.3, I can see the amplifier start to clip. If I back it down to an even 32 volts, then I get a pretty clean sine wave. So let's do the math and see how much power this amplifier is delivering in watts. If I take 32 volts RMS and square it and then divide it by my 4 ohm dummy load, then this amplifier is delivering about 256 watts before clipping. The problem is, the driver in the Caldera 12 has a DC resistance of about 5 ohms. This is higher than the 4 ohm dummy load I tested this amplifier with, which means the output rating of this amplifier will be closer to 200 watts, and is actually in line with what the owner's manual states, so I'm not really sure where the 500 watt number is coming from. Port tuning for the Caldera 12 came in at 35.33 Hz. The cabinet is nicely constructed, and I saw only one resonance taking place at around 147 Hz. This is well beyond what most people will cross this subwoofer at anyways, so it's probably not an issue. The cabinet for the Caldera 12 is the nicest I have seen from a $400 subwoofer. The real rosewood veneered cabinet is beautiful to look at and really gives the subwoofer a higher end look. I honestly can't think of another subwoofer in this price category that offers a real wood veneer cabinet and construction quality like this. The front baffle is 1.5 inches thick, which is really good for this price point. The rear cabinet wall is 5/8 of an inch thick, and the side walls are 3/4 of an inch thick. There is one brace in the middle of the cabinet that ties the two side walls together. This brace measured 5/8 of an inch thick by 2 3/8 of an inch in height. For the money, this is a really well-built cabinet for a subwoofer that is this affordable. On the inside of the cabinet, the Caldera 12 does include some damping material that has been placed on the top and two side walls. This damping material appears to be of decent quality and should help absorb any standing waves. In my opinion, the Caldera 12's cabinet construction and finish is well above average when compared to other subwoofers I have torn down from this $400 price category. If you have seen any of my previous videos on subwoofers, then you already know I like to use the intro scene from the movie Doom to perform my SPL tests with. The intro scene from my Doom DVD is absolutely brutal on subwoofers and is very bass heavy. For this test, the subwoofer will be crossed over at 80 Hz and it will be the only speaker playing. So let's see how the Caldera 12 performs. 102 dB on this test is pretty good for this $400 price category. For a comparison, my $399 Polk Monitor XT12 did 101 dB on this test, and my $399 Cerwin-Vega LA110 subwoofer did 92 dB on this test. So how does the Caldera 12 sound? For my music listening sessions, the Caldera 12 performed on par with other subwoofers that I've tested in this price category. During my listening sessions of my favorite 70s, 80s, and 90s rock music, the subwoofer sounded strong and clean, even right up to about 100 dB. That should be plenty loud for most people who value their hearing. Like most subwoofers in this price category, it did sound like there was a peak in the response in the 40 to 50 Hz range, but it wasn't as bad as some of the other subwoofers I have tested from this price category. When comparing the Caldera 12 to the Polk Monitor XT12 and Klipsch RSW series, I felt the Caldera 12 performed better overall and didn't have quite the peakiness in that 40 to 50 Hz range like the others. Overall, not a bad music subwoofer for $400, and the cabinet looks like $1 million in your living room. Next, I popped in my favorite bass-heavy movies like Tenet and War of the Worlds to see how the Caldera 12 would do. For rooms under 500 square feet, I felt the Caldera 12 did a good job of pressurizing my room with bass to the point in some scenes I could feel it in my chest. If you have a room that is larger than 500 square feet, then I would highly recommend getting 2 subwoofers, so you have enough headroom to satisfy those bass needs. Like most subwoofers from this price category, the really deep subsonic bass doesn't have quite the bass authority that a much more expensive subwoofer would have. So if you're expecting subsonic bass authority for peanuts, then you'll probably be disappointed. However, in terms of movie performance, I felt the Caldera 12 did a better job than the Polk Monitor XT12, Cerwin-Vega LA110, and Klipsch RSW10 and RSW12 subwoofers that I've tested previously. All of these subwoofers have an MSRP at or near the $400 price point, and overall, I felt the Caldera 12's movie performance was a little better than those other subwoofers that I've tested. Overall, I think the Vera-Fi audio is a respectable contender in this $400 price category. Is the subwoofer perfect? Of course not, but for $399, it does offer quite a bit of value for money. Some of the things that really impressed me about the Caldera 12 is in the cabinet. The Caldera 12's cabinet construction is on par with subwoofers costing quite a bit more. The front baffle is 1.5 inches thick, and the cabinet is finished in a beautiful rosewood veneer. I can't think of another subwoofer for $400 or less that includes similar construction quality as well as having a real wood veneer finish. Even the 12-inch driver is pretty decent. This driver is well damped, has a low resonant frequency, and the motor assembly is pretty beefy for the money. The only criticism I have is with the amplifier. The subwoofer is advertised as having a 500 watt amplifier, and during my tests I couldn't get anywhere near that, even with a 4 ohm load. Even though the amplifier missed its output rating, 200 watts is still pretty respectable for this price category. During my Doom SPL test, it was able to achieve 102 dB, which is better in output than the other subwoofers I have tested from this price category so far. Overall, the Vera-Fi Audio Caldera 12 is a decent subwoofer for the money. If you're reasonable with your expectations on what a $400 subwoofer like this can deliver, then I think most people will be happy with their purchase. And that's my look inside video on the Vera-Fi Audio Caldera 12 subwoofer. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that like button. So long, and happy listening.